Hey there everybody, I just want to make sure that you know about some new video work that I've done. I've really put my all into this stuff, doing drawing challenges that are different from anything I've ever attempted before. So click on the link in the description box below and go to ah.com to check it out. I think you're really going to like this stuff and you can't see it anywhere else. Hey there everybody, it's Mark Curley. I'm back with another video. This is the end result of a video that I did on Wednesday in which I asked my viewers for their best drawing advice, their hard-won knowledge about art and the creative life. And so I'm going to be bringing together the sort of top 10 pieces of art advice that I drew from, boy, almost 4,000 different comments that were left. And thank you so much for participating in this, those of you who did. I'm going to begin with something that's related to what I'm doing right now. I'm going to be inking a panel from Brody's Ghost Book 5. And so this first piece of art advice comes from Art by Rini-chan, who says, when you are inking something, be confident. Make a long, smooth line quickly rather than slowly, so it looks smoother. And I think I will follow that advice. Of course, that is what I normally try to do, and I thought it might be a nice way of launching into this. You're going to see me actually doing what was advised. These lines, especially for the hair, are being dropped in quite quickly. Now, those of you eagle-eye viewers may say, hey, that is a Micron Pigma, but it's not the color that I'm used to. It's dark blue. This is the Japanese version of the pen. It's essentially the exact same thing, just a different color, the way they sell it over there. But let's move on. Although I guess I should sort of comment a little bit about why I loved that piece of advice. You know, there was a lot of advice that comes in when it comes to art, which is of the sort of, I don't know, vague variety, sort of like believe in yourself, that kind of stuff. And I wanted to get at least a few things that were a little more concrete and specific, actual advice. And it is true, when inking something, that a quick movement of the pen results in a smooth line. The more you slow down, the more imperfections start to show up. So anyway, there's a little piece of useful, concrete advice we're going to begin with. Next one, also pretty specific, from Madster Madness. And the piece of advice is, make the darks darker and the lights lighter. Now that's a highly specific advice, and I would have to say even that it, you know, is not necessarily always true for all people. In fact, that, you know, probably applies to anything I say in this video, but especially this one. You know, not all pieces of art need to be high contrast, but I think for beginning artists, especially for me when I look back in the early years, I did have a tendency to not make my darks dark enough. So that is a good piece of specific advice, and you know, we laugh a little here on the Mark Curley channel about the trusty black Prismacolor. But why do I use that black Prismacolor? Well, it's to get real black, dark colors, and when you need it to go dark, if you have a tool that allows you to go jet black, it just makes the whole thing look a little more finished, a little more three-dimensional. A little more confident. So yeah, definitely I think a good piece of advice there for those of you who want to take a second look at your art and see if your dark, the areas that you intend to be dark are actually fully blackened in. Anyway, enough about that. Let's move on to the next one. From Mr. Ronin 501. My high school art teacher told me once that 1 out of every 2 minutes should be spent looking at your subject matter. That's an interesting one, and I don't think I've heard that before. 1 out of every 2 minutes. That's quite demanding, it seems to me, if I were trying to draw a still life or something. But maybe it does add up to that. Maybe it does add up to 1 out of every 2 minutes spent looking at the object. I mean, I guess the key takeaway is don't allow yourself to just keep your face down at the page. If you're trying to draw something from life, you should be observing very carefully. And maybe another sort of sideline piece of advice related to this is, you know, it's so much is about your eyes and your perception and training your eyes to see things. I think a lot of beginning artists think it's about your hands. or art supplies or different stuff like that. But really, so much of it has to do with training your eye to see things, to see the differences between things. And so that piece of advice about keeping your eye on the object that you're trying to draw at least half the time is important, insofar as you're not just staring at it, you're analyzing it, you're really studying it. And yeah, I think a useful piece of practical advice there. Let's move on to the next one. From Noah Golden. This is actually my math teacher that taught me this, but one day it just struck me that it can be applied to nearly everything. Absolutely don't do anything mechanically. I liked this piece of advice, and I think out of those thousands of comments, I only saw it maybe this one time. And yet I think it's one of the few pieces of advice that I feel I can stand completely behind as applying to almost all art creation. And that is the idea that if there is something that you do automatically without even thinking about it, every time you sit down and draw, if it's just like a default thing that you do, then you're probably not doing your best work. I think I can stand behind that. And my meaning is this. Everything should be a choice. Everything that you do in your story or your drawing, it should be something that you have opted to do because it's the best thing to do in this situation. It's not just something that you automatically do every time just because it's easy or just because it's what you're used to. So yeah, I was glad that Noah Golden included that. And it's sort of interesting to me that the piece of advice came from a math teacher. Can you believe that? But yeah, apparently it does go across all different ranges of study. That when you do something automatically, you're being robotic. You're not being fully human, are you? When you don't stop and make it a choice. So anyway, good piece of advice there. Let's move on now to this one. I'm not going to be able to read this whole thing out loud, but it's kind of interesting. This is from Mélanie Ladouce. Je prends toujours mon temps. And it was all in French. This comment was left entirely in French, and some of you may know that I studied French when I was in college, so I tried to make my way through it, and I pretty much understood what she was saying. And so I came up with the Google Translate version, and this is what it says in English. I always take my time. I can sometimes take several hours to several days. Always remember to take your time. And I just sort of liked the international aspect there of getting advice from a French viewer. Thank you so much, Mélanie. And yeah, absolutely true. I think it bears repeating. It's not a race, people. Creating art is not a sort of speed test. I think sometimes, especially when I read in YouTube comments, sometimes it does seem that people are judging you by how quickly you can execute something, and they think, "Boy, why are you so slow?" Well, you know, it's not a speed contest. It's about final results. And the truth is, certain types of drawing, a lot of the stuff that I do, it's more of an endurance contest, and your patience is forcing you to stay committed to something for hours and hours. So, you know, you're doing some highly detailed illustration, and if you start rushing it at any point, you're going to blow it. You're going to ruin it. So I wanted to make sure we got that in there. Take your time. What's the hurry? What do you gain by speeding through this thing? Now, some people may notice about how I said, you know, execute these lines quickly. So there's maybe a little bit of tension there between those two pieces of advice. Yeah, I don't mean that every line should be drawn slowly. Just that be careful to sort of monitor yourself, that you're not sort of losing patience and just trying to get through to the end of it. You're not on the clock here, folks. That may be true of other things, other pursuits, but certainly within the world of art, you are judged by the final results, not by how quickly you executed it. Now let's move on to the next one. From Ashley Schwartz. My teacher told me it's very important to know when to stop. Sometimes a picture only needs a little work done to make it complete, and overdoing it can be just as bad as underdoing it. I'm sorry, Ashley, I read that so poorly. I should have practiced reading that one. But anyway, I hope you got the idea. Overdoing it can be just as bad as underdoing it. People have heard me say this when I'm in the middle of some of my videos. I say, but I gotta know when to stop. Notoriously, I think I did a video that was teaching clothing folds some years ago, and I kept adding more and more folds until the final result of the video was pretty bad because I just overdid it. I just kept at it for too long, and so yeah, that's a piece of advice that I need to heed, and I'm constantly pausing and saying, now wait, do I need to add any more to this drawing? Maybe simplicity is best, less is more. So anyway, yeah, great piece of advice there. About knowing when to stop. And sadly, it's an easier piece of advice to give than to follow. How do you know when to stop? When is the right time to stop? There is no hard and fast rule about that. It's sort of something that you will acquire through trial and error over time. But at least keeping your eye out about it and considering the possibility that it may be time to stop now before you even realize you're done. You'll be ahead of the game if you're at least asking yourself that question. Let's move on to this next one. Concept Artist TCN. Don't stick to just one art style. Try to learn as many art styles as you can and practice in those art styles. Now this one, maybe out of all of these, is something that I don't know if we can apply to everybody. It certainly applies to me. I don't like staying within one art style, and I think especially when you're young, a lot can be gained by working in a variety of styles. So let's say, for example, you love manga style and you're always drawing in a manga style. It may do you some good. In fact, I'm pretty sure it will do you some good to switch over to a highly realistic style, challenge yourself to draw from life. Try drawing in even completely different styles, more like American comic book styles, different styles that you're not used to. I think the more that you try out and test out, the more variety there will be to the final style that you develop as your own. You'll be bringing different things into it. Bit of a value judgment there, though. You know, I don't know if everybody needs to draw in loads of different styles. You may be one of those people who just, you find your style and that's what you do. And I don't want to cast judgment upon that approach, but it's certainly something to consider. Let's move on. What is this next one? Oh, from Mustafa Shakarchi. Hope I'm saying that correctly. A thumbnail sketch before a project is the optimal moment to get the composition perfect, as in plan out the borders, where the piece goes off the page, and the angle you want to portray your piece. And wonderful piece of advice there. And in a way, the very beginning of that piece of advice may be a challenge to many of the people watching this video. A thumbnail sketch before a project. Do all of you do that? Do all of you sit down and make a thumbnail sketch, a quick sketch, before you figure out your final composition? I dare say a number of you don't. You may just pull out the pencil and just go right into the page and say, you know, hey, I'll work it out as I go along. And there's spontaneity to that. Again, I'll always pull myself back from saying it's always this way. I suppose not everybody working in all styles needs to do thumbnail sketches, preparatory work, but certainly for many styles of art, it's crucial and it helps a lot. With the comic book creation project, I myself, in the early days, would work without prepping too much. And I do feel that I improved as a storyteller a lot when I started doing a rough version of the entire story. Sometimes multiple rough versions of each page or panel to make sure that I was considering the various different ways of doing it and choosing the best one, rather than just going with the first thing that popped into my head. We're coming down to the end of my first collection of pieces of advice here. And this one is, don't get jealous of artists who are better than you. Get inspired and learn from them. That advice coming from Pindan Bear. Hope I'm saying that right. Yes, that is a wonderful piece of advice. I think it's very easy to get jealous of other people that you perceive to be more talented than yourself, and to get discouraged by that. I often see in the comments section of my videos something like, "That's it, I'm done, I'm throwing my paper sketch pad out the window, I'm never going to draw again." In a way, they intend it almost as a compliment, I think, in terms of, "Oh, Mark, you're so good, you make me want to just give up." And that, of course, always makes me very sad to see a comment like that, even if they're saying it as a joke, kind of. Please don't let, someone else's work discourage you. You really should get inspired by it to whatever degree you can, and use it as a way of improving your own work. I certainly, even as a professional, will sometimes get envious. Maybe not so much of people's abilities, but of their achievements and how far they've gone in their career and so forth. And that can become dispiriting. I saw a lot of people who said, never compare yourself to other people. And I think, that is good advice, except I chose this other version of it. When comparing yourself, make sure it inspires you rather than discourages you. I think it's almost impossible to not compare your work at all to other people, but certainly it's worth considering the idea of competing only against yourself in terms of your artwork. Try to get better than you used to be. Don't worry about whether you're better than the other person whose work you admire, or feel like, "Oh boy, I wish I could draw as good or better than this other person." I don't know how helpful that is. Maybe for some of you, that sort of competitiveness may help you out. But for me, I would rather, in terms of competing, just compete against myself and see gradually that I am getting better over time. And here we come down to number 10. This will be the last of them in the serious section. I am going to do a lightning round in a second, my ever-popular lightning round approach. But here is the last one in this section from Masi Ju PSN. And the comment is, learn to accept critiques. Even if the critique is harshly worded, it can still be legitimate critique. It's just that the person giving it isn't good at wording it. So yeah, I thought that was a good comment. I think a lot of us, of course, get our feelings hurt when there is criticism, when someone's pointing out something that's wrong with what you're doing or what they think is wrong with it. And I saw a lot of comments that were like, "Don't listen to anyone else who says that what you're doing isn't good. Ignore them." And yeah, to a certain degree, if someone's tearing you down, if they're being a hater, you got to just like, "Hey, forget you. I'm not going to listen to what you're saying." But the other side of that, especially for professionals, if you want to be the very best that you can be, you do need to learn to accept critiques. You need to consider the possibility that this person is right about the thing that they're criticizing. And when I read critiques of my artwork or my storytelling, I take them very seriously, every one of them, and consider the possibility that they're right. And can I learn something from this? Can I improve something about what I'm doing? Well, that is the end of the first serious part. I guess I'm going to divide it into serious and not quite so serious, or what I'm calling the lightning round, is where I'm just going to fly through these things very quickly. And this kind of goes in a range from the first piece of advice is the more serious, can be taken seriously, leading down as we get along to the number 10 one, to advice that I think is maybe not meant to be taken seriously at all, but I just had fun and it gave me a chuckle, the idea of including it in this video. So, let's go on to the lightning round. First one, from Nelem Naru. It is better to do something imperfectly than to flawlessly do nothing. I like that. That is a great quote. Next one, from Nana the Kuroneko. Fan art is also art. I agree with that. There's nothing wrong with fan art. You learn a lot by doing fan art. This one from Ida Nadhira. I hope I said that right. But don't draw on an empty stomach. Honestly, most of my lousy mistakes come from that. So that was interesting. We don't draw on an empty stomach. Hadn't heard that one before. Number 4, from Fui67. Don't drag your whole hand across your drawing and smudge everything. Certainly, if you're drawing in pencil, yes, try to avoid smudging your artwork. From Gray Anya. If you're drawing on a lap desk while sitting on a sofa, be alert to an ambush by your needy cat. Yes, if you've got animals in the house, they may well have undue influence on your artwork when they jump upon you while you're doing it. Here we go with Alvo Sploio. This one made me chuckle. It just says, ballpoint! Freaking ballpoint! I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, but I had to include that in this video. Let's move right along. Number 7, never forget the blushies. Of course not. How could anyone forget the blushies? That's from Cherry Bunny 01. Number 8, from Aaron Young. Don't eat Cheetos or cheese puffs before you draw. Absolutely. Unless you're working on something that's orange to begin with, maybe that could camouflage the Cheetos or cheese puffs powder. But let's move on now to number 9. Never leave a can of soda in the freezer overnight. That is not drawing advice, but I had to include it. And finally, this is maybe my personal favorite from the lightning round. It is this. Oh, that last one, I'm sorry, I forgot to credit. That was from Sector PK. Finally, my favorite one, though I can't explain why necessarily, is from Tomboy Dudette X. And the advice is this: draw your soul spaghetti. You heard it here, folks. Draw your soul spaghetti. Why not? I mean, if you don't draw your soul spaghetti, who will? Anyway, that ends up this video here of my various pieces of advice. Thank you so much for taking part in it, for leaving your comments and suggestions and so forth in terms of various art advice that I could spread around to my viewers. I'm afraid there's other things that I left out that I probably should have added in there. My apologies if you were really hoping to see your piece of advice in this video and I didn't manage to get to it. I do greatly appreciate everyone who takes the time to comment on my videos. But let's go ahead and wrap this one up. I don't have my books nearby to plug them and hype them, but I think you guys all know what they are. Mastering Manga, Brody's Ghost, Miki Falls. Anyone who gets those books, I greatly appreciate your support. I'm going to go ahead and lay down the pen, though, wrap this video up. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another one real soon.